Picture, if you will, the early 2000s. Japanese wrestling is imploding, wrestling promotions are forced to cross-promote, and Spike is trying to create a fresh wrestling game for the PlayStation 2. This game? King of Colosseum, a spin-off of the long-running Fire Pro Wrestling series. A lesser-known PS2 title released in 2002, King of Colosseum captures Japanese wrestling in the midst of utter chaos. With a packed roster of current stars scattered across several wrestling promotions, alongside some beloved legends and even some MMA fighters, there's plenty of stars to choose from. Was Spike able to use their experience in the genre to make a fun game? Is King of Colosseum worthy of being called a king of the wrestling genre, or is it just a royal embarrassment? Let's take a look.
There will be spoilers.
The early 2000s were a crazy time in Japanese wrestling, or pro-res. Unlike American wrestling, which declined because WWE bought up its major competition and monopolized the market, pro-res had the opposite problem. All Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling, Japan's biggest promotions, went through some serious changes in the 1990s that would lead to major stars from those companies breaking away to form competing promotions. All Japan's founder, pro-res legend Giant Baba, died in January 1999, and the ensuing power struggle led All Japan's top star, Mitsuharu Misawa, to take most of All Japan's wrestlers and even their TV deal and create a new company called Pro Wrestling Noah in 2000. Between having top All Japan stars and pushing fresh stars, Noah would be the hottest company in Japan for a time. For All Japan to stay afloat, the company had to bring in Genichiro Tenryu, a previous top star exiled for a similar exodus years prior, as well as start cross-promoting with New Japan. Meanwhile, New Japan's founder Antonio Inoki was alive and well, but his obsession would bring his creation to the brink of death. When MMA got big in the 1990s, he got a bit too into it. He'd bring in martial artists to wrestle, host MMA fights, and even push or de-push his wrestlers based on their success or lack thereof in MMA. This alienated a lot of New Japan talents, including Shinya Hashimoto and Shinjiro Otani, who would leave to form Pro Wrestling 01. Another top star, Keiji Muto, defected to All Japan and was handed the keys to the castle in 2002. Now more fractured than ever, Pro-Res in the 2000s saw everyone decide that it was best to work together. All Japan worked with New Japan, Noah worked with 01, and everyone lived happily ever after. Or did they? That's a story for another time. Human Entertainment started a series called Fire Pro Wrestling in 1989, which is still around today. Fire Pro stands out for its fast-paced yet precise gameplay that simulates the feel of real matches, and for expansive rosters and customization. When the PlayStation happened, Human tried to bring Fire Pro into 3D with a game called Iron Slam 96. That didn't really work out, and Fire Pro stayed 2D. Instead, Human took some of Fire Pro's ideas and made a new 3D game from the ground up. This was a spin-off called All Japan Pro Wrestling Soul of a Champion, released on April 8, 1999. With the shift to 3D, wrestlers are weightier and the gameplay feels heavier. Wrestlers still need to use weaker moves to wear down their opponent before moving to stronger ones. New to this game was the Powerball mechanic. Wrestlers start with a handful of these, and they're used to hit your big finishers. This handful is all you're going to get for a whole match. The emphasis on building to big moves and using weaker moves, holds, and strikes in between those big moves, along with how finishers work, make this a faithful recreation of the All Japan style of the time, and Human had their successful 3D wrestling game. Alas, in January 2000, Human Entertainment declared bankruptcy. Spike would acquire the Fire Pro Wrestling series, and it didn't take long for them to start using it. One of Spike's new Fire Pro games was a spiritual successor to Soul of a Champion called King of Colosseum. Oddly, this game would release in two different discs, a red disc with talent from All Japan, New Japan, and the MMA promotion PANCRASE, released on December 19, 2002, and a green disc with talent from Pro Wrestling Noah and Pro Wrestling 01, released on March 6, 2003. Starting off, remember that this game is in Japanese, so either try to get a translation patch if you emulate it, or read a guide on GameFAQs to help you navigate the menus. Also remember that you'll need both discs on standby, as you'll need to make a combined save using the option on the main menu, and afterwards you'll have to use this option to reload your combined save every time you play this. It's a little awkward having to put in both discs every single time you play, but you better get used to it. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's wrestle. You can wrestle in various real-life Japanese arenas like the Tokyo Dome, including variations for the different promotions that run there, and you can choose which promotion's ring and announcers to use too. The presentation does a great job at recreating the vibe of pro res, making each venue and promotion feel different and bringing the sports-based feel with it. The gameplay draws from All Japan Pro Wrestling's Soul of a Champion, which itself draws from Fire Pro Wrestling. You have a variety of strikes available, ranging from weaker ones to stronger ones. You can initiate lockups by holding R1 while pressing one of the face buttons. From there, you can do a grapple if you press a face button at the right time. Like in Fire Pro, at the end of an animation, you'll shift your weight, and that's the cue. You can also do this to reverse if your opponent locks up with you. These also range from weak to strong. Of course, you need to start with weak moves first. Using strikes, weaker grapples, or submission holds, you'll eventually wear your opponent down enough that you'll get to use your stronger moves, including your specials. Like Soul of a Champion, King of Colosseum also uses the Powerball mechanic. Wrestlers have a handful of these for a whole match, usually 3 to 4. By pressing X plus circle or triangle plus square, you'll be able to use these. Like other wrestling games, there's different situations that allow you to use your big moves. For example, Keiji Muto can use his Powerball on a kneeling opponent to hit them with the Shining Wizard. Stan Hansen can hit his lariat as a strike or while running at his opponent. Some wrestlers have moves like roll-ups or submission holds like the Figure 4 leg lock, and so on. Wrestlers generally have a handful of different moves or variations of certain moves set up as their Powerballs, giving a lot of variety. Once you run out of Powerballs, you won't have any more finishers for the rest of the match. But at that point, any move could realistically end the match. It's very much still recreating the 90s All Japan Kings Road style, where wrestlers win matches with a variety of moves instead of just one usual move. And it lets wrestlers like Misawa or Kobashi have all the crazy finishers that they would use in real life. After you wear down your opponent for a while, you can win the match via pinfall, submission, KO, or getting the opponent disqualified via countout. Note that Pro Res has a 20 count outside the ring versus American Wrestling having a 10 count. Just be careful not to go all out for too long. You're going to need to stop to catch your breath now and then, otherwise you're going to end up getting stuck and your opponent will be able to take advantage while you're stuck gasping for air. Two things stuck out to me about this game when I first tried it. The game is a little awkward at first. It can be a bit clunky. For example, rope break detection is really inconsistent. Sometimes just getting near the ropes causes a break, while other times you have to be under the ropes to cause a rope break. It's annoyingly inconsistent. Granted, the game emphasizes positioning. If you use a hold and you're not in the middle of the ring, the opponent can move towards the ropes. And you can also drag your opponent into a better position before doing a move, but the inconsistent rope break detection makes this part more fiddly than it really needs to be. Another clunky thing is that wrestlers can move kinda slowly and with more weight compared to other games of the time. For example, let's look at a tag match. In WWE games of this era, it's not tough to be able to control the enemy team completely, stopping them from tagging out and exploiting the AI like it's a total joke. I'm not saying that the AI should be a joke here. Having challenging AI is a good thing, but I feel like a sitting duck once my opponent goes to their corner to tag out. I feel like it's harder to interact with them in this situation than it really should be. The other thing that stands out is just the AI in general. When you're starting out, the AI will gleefully counter everything you try. On higher difficulties or during title matches in the single-player mode, it's absolutely brutal. But on the other hand, the AI is also surprisingly exploitable. Spam moves like low drop kicks and even the max difficulty AI will fail to defend itself, leaving it open to submission holds or the Shining Wizard. That's the best move in the game, good lord. Overall, I'd say that King of Colosseum's action is very satisfying to learn, but it's not quite a pick-up-and-play style as much as Aki's N64 games or Yuke's WWE games. But it's also a little clunky and a little quirky. What it does right, it does really well, and once I got into it, I found it hard to put the game down. Some of the match types other than singles matches include tag team matches, title matches, various types of tournaments, and even MMA fighting. You can also do 5v5 elimination matches where you set up teams of 5 to fight each other in a series of one-on-one matches, and you can also do 4-way matches. By winning championships in the single-player mode, you'll be able to wrestle exhibition matches for those belts. The tournaments are real-life events held by the companies in the game, like New Japan's G1 Climax. I couldn't really get too into the MMA mode, but it's cool that it's here, and it adds some variety. It's worth noting that Japanese wrestling doesn't have a lot of gimmick matches, so don't expect Hell in a Cell matches or anything. Don't worry though, with so many promotions featured, King of Colosseum has an interesting and diverse roster. Many top living legends of the time like Kawada, Misawa, Muto, and Hashimoto, MMA fighters like Minoru Suzuki, classic legends like Stan Hansen and the late Giant Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta, up-and-comers like Kenta, and even some interesting foreign talents like Steve Corino and Samoa Joe. You're not going to struggle to find a cool wrestler to pick, that's for sure. Trial Road is the bread and butter of King of Colosseum. To start, you can choose between All Japan, New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, or Pro Wrestling 01. Then you'll select one of the wrestlers working with that promotion and play out a year or so of events. Pro Res is very different from American wrestling, so don't expect crazy storylines like hanging out in the women's locker room this time. The presentation's much more serious and sports-like. You'll wrestle in regular matches, tournaments, title matches, and interpromotional matches. Between matches, you'll talk to an official, like if you work for Noah, you'll talk to Mitsuharu Misawa, train up your stats in a mini-game, which is basically blackjack, and manage your condition throughout the game. Sometimes you'll wrestle against created wrestlers who are actually wrestlers not officially featured in the game, like Bruiser Brody. At other times, you'll get to wrestle hidden wrestlers like Power Warrior. If you beat them with a Powerball move, you unlock them. Something to remember is that losing big matches in this mode can cause a game over. This isn't really a game that has branching paths, although you do have some choice in it. You can edit your wrestler's appearance and moveset, and when you have to wrestle a tag match, you're given a choice of various wrestlers to be your partner. On the whole, it's a pretty straightforward game mode, but there's variety in the different rosters available to use, customization of your own wrestler, and the ability to use created wrestlers in the mode. The ultimate goal of Trial Road is to unlock stuff. By playing through the mode, you can unlock more wrestlers, hidden attires for wrestlers, championships to compete for, and more Trial Road scenarios. After beating the All Japan, New Japan, and Noah scenarios, you unlock everything, so the other scenarios are just bonuses, but hey, more content. It is kinda silly that 01 is promoted as one of the main companies in the game, but you can totally skip their scenario, but whatever. It's not the deepest single-player mode ever, and it's certainly not very cinematic. You don't get cutscenes other than the opening cutscene and end credits. You're either wrestling, looking at the menu, or looking at a JPEG of your boss telling you you're a loser. But it does the job well enough. It's definitely much more bare bones and to the point than the WWE games from this era. Japanese wrestling games tend to be more straightforward like this, so this is pretty par for the course. Fire Pro Wrestling is famous for its customization options, and King of Colosseum doesn't disappoint. Wrestlers have 4 attires that can each be customized, although some of these have to be unlocked in Trial Road. A great detail is that many wrestlers have attires that are labeled Extra. This isn't an extra attire, but rather those attires recreate a different version of that wrestler and have a different moveset. For example, Mitsuharu Misawa has attires for both his current-day Pro Wrestling Noah version or the younger Misawa from 90s All Japan. Before I talk about the fun parts of edit mode, remember that this is a Japanese game. Luckily, you can rename all the wrestlers so their names are written in English, but that's a bit of work you're going to have to do if you don't play the game with a translation patch. You can edit the wrestlers that are already in the game, or you can create your own, including many wrestlers that aren't featured in the game but have edit parts. And there's a ton of options here. You can mess with the appearance of a wrestler to get what you want, you can create their moveset, including choosing their Powerball finishers, you can set up their stats, and even set up CPU logic. The CPU logic is incredibly sophisticated, allowing the game to recreate how real wrestlers actually wrestle. And you're gonna have to do this for your new wrestlers. If you don't set this up, the wrestler will literally just stand there and do nothing. I didn't really mess with this very much because it's deep.
But it's in Japanese!
Luckily, they have preset moves and logic available, so I used these to make a bunch of real wrestlers like Wild Pegasus, Tiger Mask, Bruiser Brody, Dan Severn, and Ric Flair. It's good stuff. I found myself spending a ton of time in the edit mode, recreating my favorite attires of wrestlers, or just making my favorite wrestlers that aren't already here. I love that all the wrestlers are made using parts in the edit mode, so created wrestlers don't stick out compared to real ones. I can't say enough about how fun this mode is. Now that we've talked at length about King of Colosseum, it's time for the conclusion. Is King of Colosseum a king of the genre, or just a royal embarrassment? Pros: expansive roster featuring All Japan, New Japan, Noah, 01, PANCRASE, freelancers, etc. All the top stars you'd expect are here, including legends like Jumbo Tsuruta, Giant Baba, and Stan Hansen. Some interesting inclusions here are Giant Singh, who would later be WWE's Great Khali, Minoru Suzuki from PANCRASE a short time before he returned to wrestling, a young Kenzo Suzuki, thank God this isn't 2004 SmackDown, among others. This game is a last hurrah for the Giant Baba era of All Japan Pro Wrestling, as Keiji Muto took over the company that year, and the company was sold shortly afterwards. The gameplay, while a little wonky at first, is really satisfying once you're used to it, with hard-hitting moves and lots of variety since wrestlers don't just rely on one or two specific finishers. Also, there are MMA fighters like Minoru Suzuki, and naturally, MMA fighters play totally different than wrestlers. Great presentation that recreates the vibe of the various wrestling promotions very well, since each has different rings, arenas, and announcers. Trial Road is an enjoyable single-player mode that is straightforward, challenging, and varied through all of the different scenarios available, and a deep, engaging edit mode that lets you go pretty crazy recreating all your favorite wrestlers that didn't make it in. Cons: the clunkiness of the game sometimes makes stuff harder than it needs to be, like trying to keep an opponent from tagging out. Rope breaks are pretty inconsistent too. The AI is really wonky. It's either insanely good at countering everything, or it's totally stupid and lets you spam low dropkicks. Shining Wizard! This game is rather obscure. I've heard good things online about the sequel, King of Colosseum 2, and stuff like guides, mods, and so on, but there's not much info about this game. Guides are available, but they're basically all by one guy, and at points I wondered how accurate these guides really were. I couldn't even find a full soundtrack for this game online. Playing this game feels like I'm going where no one has gone before. And of course, you have to buy 2 discs to fully experience this game. These days, that's not too bad. I got both together complete in box from an eBay seller in Japan for $34, and they're usually bundled together online, but it's the principle of the thing. You have to buy 2 games to properly enjoy one experience, and you'll need to have both ready every single time you play it, since you have to combine the discs and reload your combined save. It's not the worst thing in the world. In the end, you get a comprehensive wrestling experience that's really fun, but it's still a pain in the ass having to do this every single time. Overall, I really loved my time with this game. I think we Americans were spoiled rotten when it came to wrestling games on the PS2. So many great games in the genre were released here. SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, Fire Pro Wrestling Returns, and of course, Here Comes the Pain. But there's a whole world of wrestling games out there that never made it out of Japan. This game is really great. I'd even say it's a hidden gem. And if this game's any indication, Japanese wrestling games on the PS2 are incredible and are worth looking into. This is a good game, and I think serious wrestling game fans of the PS2 era should check it out, either on a real PS2 or an emulator. Just remember, you need a Japanese PS2 or a modded PS2 if you want to play it on real hardware. If you have any thoughts on King of Colosseum or any other wrestling games, I'd love to talk about it in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.